it went through the legislative process, and there was a proposal that use serpentine. See, Class A has serpentine for the last several years. We're in serpentine by returning state points and returning placers. So like the team with the most points, it goes in District 1, then goes to District 2 for the next team, and then District 3, and then District 4, and then you serpentine and go 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's your serpentine in Class A. Well, that's easy enough because your furthest west school in Class A, well, you have North Platte, but then past that is Kearney. So the travel is not as significant when you look at that. When you look at B, C, and D, the travel can be much more significant because there's a lot more rural schools in the West and a lot more travel when you're talking about Scottsbluff, Gary, you know. In the last few years, we've had some districts that were just loaded. I mean, like super loaded, and then we had kids that were state qualifiers and state placers not making it back to the state championships, where in other districts, because of geography, and that's the way we used to do it, just geography, because of geography, we had kids that had losing records that would make it to the state championship. Well, that didn't seem like, that wasn't the right way to do it. I mean, when you have a kid that is, you know, 34-4 and he doesn't make it, and a kid that's 8-10 and he does make it, that we felt as a collective group that probably wasn't the best way to do your championship. So a proposal came through from several schools actually. They serpentine the districts similar to the Class A. The only difference being your western schools that were always determined from the west going east would stay the same because of travel. So for example, you're in Class B, that would be the first 12 schools when you start in the west. And then you go, your 12 schools, there's your line, they're in the West District, they would have been in the West District regardless, that's going to stay the same. Then you take the returning points of everybody that's left in the state, and then you serpentine them like you do A. So then your districts are going to be significantly different, and schools are going to be wrestling schools that they probably never wrestled before unless they made it to the state championship. So that's pretty exciting. We're working on that. That's a lot more of a task administratively to make sure that you get that correct. And then when you look at placing those teams with the points, you have a number of teams that don't have returning qualifiers or returning points. So after you serpentine the points, then you look at your host, and then wherever the host is selected, and you try to make it where it's not too terribly much travel for everybody. But then you start, those teams that don't have any points, they're going to be placed by a geography. So like once you determine your host and you see where they're going to be, then like, all right, you're as close to this one as anybody, so we'll place you over here. So it's way different than they've ever done, but it's been I think a good change. I think it's going to be really good for wrestling, especially competitive portion of it. And when you get to the state championship, and because we're doing this, and because we are changing our scheduling criteria, where you have required to have more duels and the points, and we have track wrestling, which allows you to have common opponents, have a seeding criteria. I think that the ultimate goal is what I've heard from the coaches is they would like to seed the state tournament. So all of this plays into getting to the ultimate goal at the end of seeding the state tournament. Because we have great semifinal matches, but sometimes those matches should probably be your finals matches, and it's too bad that it is that way. But we might be able to get to the point where we seed the state tournament and use the criteria to do that, and then because when you serpentine those districts, you're probably going to have more common opponents too.